Yes, people, we are back on Spurs Kings TV. We are live. Big yourselves up and please make sure you like, share, and subscribe each and every time. We're here to talk all things Spurs as always. We have a game tomorrow, finally some football, and we're playing Hearts. So we're going to preview a bit of that. We're going to talk about strikers. We're going to talk about all that good stuff. How do Spurs move forward in this current season under Ange? There's no excuses this time. We can't say he's got a grace period or he needs more time to bed in or we're going to give him a season. It's just, this is the make or break season for Ange. So to help me discuss all these points, I have a few guests. One going by the name of Dan E. How are you doing, sir? How are you doing, my kind brother?
I'm all right, mate. Long day, but same Spurs, different day. Yourself?
Yeah, bro, I'm well. I'm healthy. And I'm here to kind of get into it, talk about Spurs. It's been a minute. So, yeah, man. Let's bring on my next guest. We have Ricky Sachs. How you doing, friend? How you doing, my fine sir?
Ash, lovely to be here, mate. Thank you so much for having me. Hope you're well, bro.
Nice. Guys, please do remember to please like, share, and subscribe. But I want to big up the chat before we go any further. And big up to Time Added On Raids over there with Alan and Dago, I see doing good things. So big yourselves up. We've got John George. We've got Simon as well, saying Time Added On. Tony Rodriguez, a member. Big up you guys. Time Added On from Alan. Ronnie as well, up in the building. Big yourselves up. And yeah, also Lord Rodney Trotter. Spurs are fucking up everywhere. We go everywhere we go. 84 years later. Big you guys up in the comments, man. I'm going to try and get as much up on the comments as possible. But yeah, I just want to get everyone's thoughts at the moment because obviously we've signed a couple of players. We're looking at what, Man City haven't really signed anyone at the moment, but do they need to really? Looking at Arsenal, have they signed anyone? No, not anyone of significance. Chelsea, meh. Liverpool, an 18-year-old. Not many things have happened so far. So what do you guys think in terms of what do Spurs need to do to be like a serious team moving forward? How can we move forward? And at this current state, how we are in at the moment, where do you think we will end up if the team doesn't change? And I'll start with you, Dan.
Well, on the first with it, for me, actions speak louder than words. I've heard all the words. I've heard all the talk. Now let's see if Ange can walk the walk. He's the one who stated last season that we're going to go for the title this season. We all know that was crap. It's not going to happen. And especially not by buying two 18-year-olds that have never stepped foot in the Premiership and someone like Timo Werner. So at the moment, I've got to see actions of about three players that walk into that 11 to think we have a chance of even holding fifth place. Because Aston Villa, you can see they mean business. You can guarantee Liverpool will get in a player or two they need. Arsenal will pay that big money for that player they need now because they're building on what they've got now. They've got their more than their basic builders. For me, they need a striker and a bit of depth and they can win that league. Makes me feel sick saying it, but it is what it is. City obviously need one or two players just to keep it rolling. Chelsea, yeah, well, we'll see what they do. But we know the other teams, Man U, look like they're up for business. They was out going for people where people saying that the Euros are on. Well, they was looking at De Ligt and other players that were in the Euros.
Xerxes as well, yeah.
But as all I kept hearing off people like Spurs supporters was, well, we can't go or talk to anyone or anyone's agents because they're in Europe. Well, that's what agents are for. Who knows? Maybe three players are coming out of nowhere, like an Eze and all that. But I've got to see it to believe it. At the moment, I must admit, I haven't got much faith and I need Ange to adapt as well. His style.
I hear it, man. Ricky, what do you think? Like, if the team was to stay how it is, can you see Spurs at least staying fifth, or do you see us maybe progressing? Like, people are talking about some of the young players, Archie Gray. It's like a talent that could come in and help with the squad. We've got Bergvall as well. Barcelona wanted him. Do you think these players could come in and make a difference? Do you think they could start, or what are your actual thoughts on Spurs if we don't, make any more like senior signings? Where do you?
Yeah, actually, I think at the moment, look, can't get away from the fact that we ended last season with 5 defeats out of the last 7. So I think we all knew that going into the summer, there's a lot of work to be done. And with no disrespect, I mean, look, Bergvall looks like an incredible young talent. Again, I say the word young. You look at the likes of Archie Gray coming in, prospect, potential. I think as Spurs fans, a lot of us want to see what's going to happen right now, what's going to come in and fundamentally change the 11 that we've got right now. I think where we are at the moment is that we are going into now pre-season with, at the moment, no, in my opinion, genuine players that walk into the first team. We might be pleasantly surprised with Archie Gray and Bergvall. They may rip up pre-season and then change our mind. But I think where I'm at is that I need to see in this summer window, for me, three or four genuine players that actually come in and directly walk into the first team. And I do have my reservations and concerns whether Spurs will do that this summer. And I know it's difficult because, again, there's been a Euros, there's been a Copa America, so I appreciate in terms of negotiation and trying to do deals, it's not the most easiest. So I think many of us fans would have hoped this last 4 or 5 days there would have been some more acceleration done on players to get some deals done over the line. Look, again, with the players that Spurs want, arguably some of the likes of Barici Eze, Pedro Neto, these aren't going to be easy deals to do. But again, I'll cast your mind back to what Ange said at the point of the end of the season when we had that Newcastle game, of course, away in Australia. And he said that Spurs had their plan for the summer and are well equipped to battle that. Again, look, just to put some context on it, we're recording on the 16th of July. So it's only obviously, of course, the first couple of weeks back of pre-season. But I need to see a lot more for me in these coming weeks and certainly before the start of the season. So in my mind, I can go into next season feeling in any stage more confident that we can really go higher in terms of position than we are. Because I think at the moment where I'm at is that I don't see too much changing when I look at the teams above us. And I know, again, Liverpool got a new manager, Dan Radolf, there obviously some other teams and obviously their situation and circumstance. But Ange has come out and said he wants to win the title. That's what he said, not what we asked for. That's what he said. That's the man that said that. So on the basis of what we've got at the moment, I think if we're all going to be real and honest about it, I don't think we can look and see that we're anywhere near a title at the moment, given the squad we've got, given where we are at this point of the window. So we need to see a lot more. And it remains to be seen whether Spurs go and get the players in to do that.
Dan, what do you think Spurs need to do in terms of because we spoke backstage, you were saying about, the forward line needs to improve. And you were talking about the actual structure of what Ange does. Ange only plays with 2 centre backs. And basically set up a little bit earlier, we could have got things together a bit sooner. Do you think he's learned from that in this season where he might change things tactically? Because he did change it, as you said, towards the end of the season. Do you think he'll carry on? Has he learned? Or will he carry on making the same mistakes that he did last time?
Well, through most of last season, up until about game 34, I was just wondering, is the man that naive or is he just that ignorant or is he just that stubborn? I didn't really have the idea for him, he's just riding out the Premiership to see what it's like, because really last season I saw no chopping and changing with him. He was just set on one way only. All right, I get he wants to get it into the team. Personally, I think we should have had 4th place easy. Aston Villa weren't nothing special. All the other teams that was anything was all over the place. Out of those games we lost, and out of those 2 separate occasions, I think, where we went 4 straight defeats, we could have easily got a few points out of them or even wins out of them if he would have just adapted his system. If he would have sorted out that zonal marking that quite a few of us spotted after 15 games, and then it even got mentioned to him 20 games onwards, and he basically shrugged his shoulders and might as well have said there's bigger fish to fry. Yeah, when we become the joint 3rd worst team in the Premiership for conceding goals, basically, on set pieces. Okay, he changed it with 3 games to go. But for me, that was a little bit too little too late. I would have thought a good manager would have noticed this and seen this 15 games in, like a lot of supporters noticed it. Even down to the point with the goalkeeper. They sussed his weak spot. He don't like it physical. He's more mouth. And then we're going into corners like the game against Arsenal. Our goalkeeper's getting touched up and no one's doing anything. Shouldn't Ange or even the player be defending him, saying, right,
this is
I've
my
got to
question.
see him adapt to stuff like this. I've got to see things happen.
Is it a thing where do you think he's learned from? I know it took him a long while to kind of grasp that, put a man on the goalkeeper to help him with the physicality of the Premier League. Cool. Sometimes not always drop into a back three. Maybe don't let one of the fullbacks go up into the half space, whatever, the midfield. Do you think this season now he's a bit more wiser, a bit more smarter to the situation, and he can learn from it? Or do you think he'll carry on and revert back to type and still go with the gun-ho situation, where he it's all or nothing if he gets the players that he wants? Because a lot of the arguments last season was, he's learning about the squad, he's learning about who fits his system and who doesn't, and now's a chance where if you play well, you get to stay in a Spurs 11 or Spurs squad, sorry. And if he gets the players that he wants, then he can start playing the type of football he wants. So do you think that's going to change if he gets to play the players he wants? Or do you think he'll stay the same as last season and be slightly naive in certain situations?
I don't think you're going to see much change, because really, if he wants to play the way he wants, he's got to get about, I'd say, 4 or 5 of that first team out of the team. And 2 of those players are Doji and Porro. We're playing them in the right position. We're playing them under the wrong sink. They are not inverted wing backs. You want the most out of them 2, you have them as overlapping wing backs. We're basically doing exactly what Southgate just did, sticking Foden out on the left when he should have been a 10. He's got about 4 players in there that he plays in position, but he plays them to the total wrong style. So obviously you're going to get no consistency out of them. You're not going to see the best out of them. You'll see moments out of him. I just haven't seen enough off of him yet to show that he's got even a plan B most of the time. I've seen him make decisions in games that have changed games and then go and play the next game, but wait until we're 3-0 down before he makes a sub again. And then 2 games later, he makes the sub when we're 1-0 down, which changes the game. I'm stuck with the manager at the moment. I don't actually know if he's got the capability of having a plan B or even adapting to the Premiership, realising that his way, he can't play that against every team. Not in the Premiership. You can't play that way against Arsenal, City, Liverpool, and teams like that. You can't do it. You'll get away with it with the smaller teams. He's got to adapt, and I've got to see it to believe it.
Ricky, we're talking about adapting and moving players around. A lot of the fan base have been calling for a number 6, a defensive midfielder, what we used to call it, a player that can kind of, shield the back line, help them out at times. And obviously, Bissouma has been wanting off the ball more time. We've been exposed, especially when it comes down to the sides. That's when Spurs have been exposed quite a lot. Do you see Spurs? I mean, we've been linked with Conor McGallagher. We've been linked with Conor Gallagher quite a bit this season. So it doesn't look like Ange is looking for a number 6. Where do you sit on this? Do you think that we need a defensive midfielder to help us, or do you think it's a case of Ange trying to get bodies in or midfielders that kind of suit his system, where it's more energy, more legs, they're more robust, they're trying to win the ball back in higher up positions? What do you think the club are trying to do, or what do you think that needs to be done as a fan?
Actually, I think the reality with Ange is that he needs players that ultimately want to buy into the way he wants to play. And I think towards the back end of last season, when they had, like I say, not to sound like a broken record, of 5 seats out of the last 7, there were clearly players in there that I think we all felt just simply weren't playing for him, or just simply weren't adapting to the way he wants to play. And that's why I said, again, when I look at the case of this upcoming summer, I need to see, for me, a real change in terms of players coming in and players coming out to make me feel there's going to be more players coming in that we're going to really buy into his methodology, and also at the same time see players leave that arguably weren't so much, you'd say, bought into the way he wants to play. I think where we are at the moment is that Bissouma, as we saw last season, was great for the first 10 games, but after that never really got back to that level. Bentancur, I think for me on his day, is arguably the best midfielder at the football club, but again, injuries have been a real problem for him. In addition to the fact with Bentancur, we discussed the other night, Ash, that I think the problem we've got with Bentancur is that it's a really difficult summer. He's in a situation with obviously Toney, or to some degree you'd say that situation around the racism remark he's made, and on top of that he's had an incident that happened in the Copa America where I think that's not going to go in his favour when it comes to potentially staying at Spurs this summer, depending on what happens during the window. And if Spurs get an offer in, I think they would consider it, where I think maybe at the start of the summer, it wouldn't even be a conversation. But I think with Bentancur, I think his future is fairly uncertain. Same as Basuma. Again, I'm not going to sit and pin all my hopes on the likes of Archie Gray and Lucas Bergwall. For as great as they look like as prospects, I have got, serious concerns that Spurs haven't gone in and, for me, really address that midfield. Again, I'll caveat it is only the 16th of July. It is fairly early, but I do stand where Dan said earlier at the start of the show. I need to see action more than words. And said, as I said on the start of the show, we had a plan for the summer. It's going to be arguably getting harder and harder as that season draws to a start to try and bring players in. And I think the key thing with Andrew, you've seen over the last couple of windows, he's always wanted players in early. We're going into the start of pre-season with, no disrespect, we've got Bergwall there, we've got Gray there, that's great, but we've got no prominent signings yet through the door. You could argue and say, has anyone really made any real prominent signings? You've got United have just signed Xerxes. But apart from that, no one's really done a huge amount of business. But the key thing for me is that I want to know when we kick off the season away to Leicester City on the 19th of August, we've got our players in that Ange sees as the players that he wants to form part of his big project. And I think we're going to need to see, in my opinion, 3 or 4 players walk in that are going to really, really change the dynamic of what Spurs want to be for this season. And that's where, for me, I do have my concerns whether we'll do that. And I'll touch upon the manager if I can very quickly. Look, I think I've not shown or hidden anything in terms of my feelings around Ange on last one on Spurs. I really, really want it to work. I've said from a heritage perspective, there's no one that wanted to work more than me in terms of Ange Postecoglou. But at the same time, I do have a number of alarm bells at the back end of last season that I can't shake off. I can't shake off seeing the scoreboard that we're 3-0 down at home to Arsenal. That's really hard for me to mentally still come to terms with the fact we were 3-0 down to them at home. I think the way we got beaten by Liverpool was concerning. But at the same time, I think, look, the manager's still dealing with the last 3 or 4 managers' players, if you're going to be honest about it. So he needs an opportunity to bring in his players. My concern is whether we get the players that are going to really change the way Spurs want to be in terms of actually fighting for a title, because that is what Ange has told us he wants to do. So I need to see more to give me the genuine hope between now and the start of the season. We're going to be ready for that.
Marlon. You've got Ashmatic on your screen, bro. Everyone wants to be like Ash. No, I'm joking. Listen, pick yourself up. Thanks for joining us. And I'm happy for you to take over when you're ready. But I've got a question. Since I'm hosting for now, I've got a question for you. Do you see anyone in this current team improving like next season? Do you see any players stepping up to the mark or seeing some type of turnaround? How do you see it, man? Do you see it like pretty much the same and like no one else is going to get to that level where we need them to be?
What a question to start me off with, isn't it?
No, right?
Bit of a low blow, that one. It would only be the players that they're going to bring in, really. I don't think there's going to be a lot. The players we've already got, I think a lot of them hit their ceiling under Ange, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think, you look at someone like Destiny and Porro, I don't think there's any more to come from them. I think that's their level, like that is their level. So I'm not, but yeah, the only person that I can think off the top of my head is probably Dragoshin, but that's because we haven't seen him. So he's probably again, it's going to be players that we haven't really seen that I think it's going to be quite key. Probably where we'll see the most improvement. I don't know. Because even Sarr, I know Mari's put it there, but even Sarr is kind of questionable.
Anyone else? Open question. Anyone could jump in. Does anyone see? Like, I ain't trying to be negative right now. You know, it's a Spurs show. We got a pre-season game coming in.
I want to quickly say a word to Ricky Osvaldo there, my namesake there, who says I'm a happy clapper. I think, if anything, I've been really trying to hold Ange to account since the man's walked through the door. He had a great start to the season, went 10 unbeaten. We were all delighted by, obviously, the start to the season. The key thing is how the Spurs going to navigate from the 10 games into the rest of the season. And I think, again, as we saw, the issue Spurs have always got is that when they haven't got their first 11 out there fully fit, Spurs genuinely struggle. And I think, again, we saw that from the Chelsea game onwards, that if you take out 3 to 4 players from Spurs' 11, the likes of like Madison, Mickey van der Ven get injured, Udogie get injured, Spurs haven't got the strength in depth to really sustain a challenge on any real front. So I think, again, this comes back to the point that, especially going into this season, when you've got Europa League, when you've got the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, you want to take very seriously, along with obviously sustaining a decent challenge in the league. I think, again, if you looked at this season upcoming, I think if I said to all of us that, we'd end the season in the top four, we win a trophy, I'm sure most of us would take that, right, in terms of it being a successful season. But I look at us at the moment and I don't see enough in terms of squad depth that really gives me the optimism that we've got enough at the moment to really sustain a challenge on all four fronts and really go for, a more promising league finish, along with really trying to battle in the Europa League. So again, for me, I need to see more. That's why I do take umbrage, being called a happy clapper. I have always, in my opinion, want to see the club push on, really try and be successful on the pitch, not just off it. And that's why, again, I'll make the point that for me, I need to see genuine progression during the off-season now with 3 to 4 players that come in and walk into the first team. Because, in my opinion, if we don't see that, nothing's going to really change. It again will be another season, 5th or 6th, we'll be out of the Cups. And that's why, for me, I need to see a genuine change in the way Spurs do their recruitment this summer and go in for players that are genuinely going to actually improve that first 11.
I hear it, man.
Don't we also go to Asia in 6 or 7 days as well? Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. So, if we really mean business, and Ange is the one who has to say in what players come in and what players go out, those words came out of his mouth. That's why I have such a dig at him for getting someone like Timo Werner back in. Are we really going to have these players ready within the next 7 days to go to Asia with? Or is stuff going to get done for by the time we get back from Asia? Then the players we bought are going to have had no training with the team, basically, by the time we play our first team, give or take 6 days sort of thing. We're going to be in a bit of a situation again. And I don't see where the positive side is coming from at the moment. Yeah, I get it. Hope. Yeah, well, I've had enough hope in my life being a Spurs supporter. I don't want to live on hope for the rest of my life. I hope that I win the Euros twice a week, but I never do. I need to see some business here. I need to see some good players coming in that get into that team, that can change that team. And at the moment, we're relying on two 18-year-olds and someone who has blatantly proven that they can't handle top football, i.e. Werner. He's not. He's a mid-table club at best. So where is anyone meant to be positive over this? Even if Ange starts looking better at what he does, all right, he can get a few more points out of that. But if he doesn't get the players that he wants to do what he wants, the whole thing's pretty much irrelevant anyway, isn't it?
Staying with this is my last question as well, Marlon. But actually, I'm going to say it to you, Marlon. There's been rumours about Kulu being linked with a certain club called Napoli, right? And apparently they're obsessed. I think that's coming from Conte. Obsessed could be the new buzzword. I don't know. But the question is, and everyone can jump in and chime in, would you sell Kulu if a bid came in? And what bid would you let him go at? Would you let it be like 30 mil, 40 mil, 50 mil? Would you keep him and say, nah, he needs to be played, and we need to utilize him because he's been one of our most creative players, if not the most creative player in the team? Do you know what I mean? According to like the stats and the numbers. So where do you sit on it? And also, just to add on to that, we've been linked with Chiesa. Do you think that could be a suitable replacement for Kulusevski? And it's a tricky one because we know, he's injury prone. But anyway, I'll let you talk. Go on.
You know what? I'm going to let our guest answer this. Because I saw the news today and I was like, where do I sit on it? I probably would sell Kulu to a certain extent. But at the same time, I'm also at the same brink of going, but it needs to be a decent replacement. Do I see Spurs going out and getting a replacement? If not anytime soon. So I'm not 100% sure on it. I'm not. I'm 50-50. If we were to sell him, I wouldn't be overly disappointed. But at the same time, if he didn't leave, I wouldn't be concerned either. He's one of them. I don't know. I feel like we've still got more to see from him. And he's probably the one that still has a question mark over his head. But I'm going to let Dan answer this. I'll go to Dan first.
Well, I follow the Italian football, always have done, and I've been saying for about 6 months now, Chiesa is someone we should look at because I knew we'd get him we'd get for a half decent price. Italy, they are very troubled with money at the moment. And Chiesa for about, 21 million euros, let's say about, I guess, 17.5 million pound, basically, give or take 500,000. It's a no-brainer for me. He's better than everything we've already got there already. He can play on the left very well. He can cross the ball. He can pass the ball. He can shoot. He can play on the right. You can even play him in the middle if you wish. For me, that's a no-brainer. I would have rather gone and got Chiesa than gone out and gone Gray for a man who's for a boy who's never even stepped in the Premiership. We're talking about an international player there, proven. Okay, he's got to do Premiership. Not all of them handle that. But Chiesa is one that I've been saying for 6 months that we should be going for because we're getting him at a good price. And with Kulusevski, I still think we just play him in the wrong position. Stick him as an attacking midfield central. You see a lot more out of him. Sort of like a 10, hold the ball, roll, target man, whatever you want to call him. But if we get a good offer for him, sell him because we're not going to play him there. Sell him and go get Chiesa. We shouldn't even have to sell him to get Chiesa, but Chiesa is one I think we should 110% go for.
Bro, I hear it, man. Like, really should be able to keep hold of all your top players. But obviously, the debate's there, and some people are fans of Kulu, some people aren't. And I understand like the criticism of him because for me, he's a bit inconsistent on that right wing. You said he's not in that right position. He needs to be playing in the Maddison role. I even think in the Maddison role, he was touch and go, in my opinion. False nine, I need to see more of it. False nine, I need to see more because his physicality, his ability to hold players off, that kind of suits the number 9 position. His link play is not bad. Do you know what I'm saying? And I just think he's a little gun shy for what I like in a number 9. When he's inside in those dangerous areas, I want to see him let it off. That's all. And if he can do that, I'm happy to have him playing a false 9. But I would still want a striker on top. But yeah, if that allows Spurs to go and get a right winger, I hope that wouldn't be the only attacker. But my question to you, Ricky, is Chiesa or Neto? Being that they both been riddled with injuries, whatnot. So who would you rather go for, Chiesa or Neto? As a fan, like what would excite you more? What would you think is the better business for the two?
You know, I've got to be honest with you, I'm not as expert and knowledgeable as Dan is on the Italian league, so I can't sit there and give you an in-depth analysis on Chiesa. Look, in terms of highlight reels, YouTube reels, he looks like a good player. Pedro Neto destroyed us, in my opinion, last season at home, the way he completely and utterly took us apart. I think for me, and again, this is maybe sounds like a bit of a cop-out answer. For me, it's who the manager wants. And I think, again, many will look at the size of his summer and say, these what the ones the manager wants are these club signings, which again might open up a different debate. But I think, look, Chiesa looks a real promising player. Again, his versatility is down until he can play a number of positions. With Neto, as well as Chiesa, they've had their injury problems and injury concerns. I think for me, the key thing is that Neto is going to be a huge amount of money with, again, as you know, an issue where I think he's missed the last. I think if you look at his availability over the last 2 or 3 seasons, he's missed over 100 games of injury. Spurs really can't afford to bring another player in that has got that kind of injury concern.
60 mil as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at upwards of 60 million. Again, you've got to remember that Wolves have just sold their best player at the club, they'd arguably say, in terms of their defender, of course, to West Ham United. And, you know, to lose him as well as losing Neto in the same summer, I think will be really, really hard for them. I do want to go back, if I can, to the point around the Kulusevski debate, because, you know, what's interesting, we had that chat off there, and Dan was saying to me, you know, that maybe Kulu is best player maybe around the 10 position as more of a attacking midfielder. I've got to say, I was the same as you, Ash. You know, even when he was deployed in that kind of number 10 attacking mid role, it was still really touch and go for me. I haven't seen enough for Kulusevski in the last 18 months to really give me the confidence that we will get that player back that we saw in that first season. It was under Conte. When he was formidable, he was fearless, he was taking the opposition on. And I'm not sure why we haven't seen that same Kulusevski. I mean, I think he recently become a father. I can only speak from experience having 2 under 4 that I'm knackered, and I'm not even a footballer, so I don't know what it's like for the player himself. But I think when I look at Spurs in general, they need much more consistency across the forward line. And again, we've discussed Werner coming in. I mean, again, what you make of that is that taking up a position where, again, that means you're losing out on a forward? If that's the case, I think we all would maybe agree that we wouldn't have wanted to sign Werner if it's going to mean that we're now going to sacrifice not bringing another forward in. So I think the key thing for me is that where I am with Kulusevski, if an offer comes in that's unbelievable, I think we have to be open to that. But it also depends on what Spurs are going to get in return. If you're getting a Chiesa in return or a Neto in return, for as injury prone as they are, those guys have shown they can score goals. I mean, you might have that little bit doubt over Chiesa because he's not Premier League proven. But with Kulusevski, there's been a drop off in the last 12 months or so, which again is alarming. It's whether Ange feels you can get the best out of him in the second season, obviously under his tenureship. So it feels it's a make or break season for Kulu, the same way it's a make or break season for Bentancur if he stays here, as we discussed, obviously, last night with you, Ash, and last one on Spurs.
You see with Kulu quickly, I think he has not been up to standards over the past 18 months. Not at all. When he played as the number 10, I think it was, I agree, it was 50-50 with him. He had a couple of solid games and then he had a couple of fruity games as well. The thing is with Kulusevski, though, is I think with Spurs, the way we play, I think he's more of a player that we notice him if he's not there than when he is there to an extent. Because one thing he is actually very good at, which Johnson is absolutely useless at, is coming back and helping cover in that space where there's no right back there because the right wing back has gone inverted. He's very good at coming back to the halfway line and giving that bit of support, holding the ball for some of the team to get forward. Johnson can't do that, love nor money. I mean, I could nudge him off the ball with my left shoulder just like that. There's nothing of him. But Kulusevski is actually quite a solid man. He can hold off two people straight away. And there was a few games where he didn't play. You realise that we had no holding of the ball as such because we ain't got no one with any physicality bar him who can actually do that. But he's one who could leave just as easy as well.
That's true. Guys, what do you think about this as well as fans? Because we're all fans, we're all Spurs fans. But if we sign only one attacker, how disappointed would you be after all of this talk about, and I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it, PSR, FFP, obviously we had the concerts like Travis Scott, you know what I mean? Travis Scott was dancing. We've got other concerts, obviously, that have been in the past. They've mentioned a new hotel, which is going to bring more revenue as well. We're talking about selling players on top of the go-kart. So clearly we are in a financial strong position.
Just got 2 new sponsors.
Just got new, and they said it could be game-changing as well. But yet, I still feel like it's one attacker. And so do we have to choose between... Because is he an attacker? Is that a count as attacker, or is he count as a midfielder? I don't know. So is he attacker or Neto, or do we get both? Or is my head in the clouds saying, "Oh, we could get Eze and Neto"? Like, am I being delusional? So, is it? Because if not, I'll tell you right now.
So
I'll be real to you.
Yeah,
just what? Yeah, go on.
It's not the question then. All right. It's been rumored that we're only going to get one attacker. But the question for everyone, and including you, will be, if that's true, how many actually attackers or attacking forward players do you think we need in this current squad as of today to improve this 11 and take us forward?
I think, coming on that, Richarlison's not good enough, is he, in terms of what we're looking for in terms of a forward that's going to really lead the line and be a vocal point. So I think the reality is that if we can get a decent offer that comes in for him and, again, we can upgrade, I think we'd be open to that. And you know what? I know when you look at the list of strikers Spurs have been linked with across the summer, I mean, everyone knows and they've seen the same names being linked on social media. I wouldn't mind having a punt on someone like a Jonathan David as an alternative to Richarlison because this guy has consistently banged in 20-plus goals in the last 4 seasons. I mean, whatever you say about him, his availability has been a lot more than Richarlison has in terms of the last 3-4 seasons. So if we had the opportunity of having an exchange there, Richarlison moving on and bringing someone like, a Jonathan David coming in, I would be open to that. I'm of the same mindset. I think Ash, you raised the question now. Eze alone is not enough to take Spurs to, in my opinion, what you consider to be that next level. It's just not. So the reality is, in my opinion, Spurs need Eze and a forward, or Eze and another striker to really take Spurs forward, in my opinion. I don't think one's enough.
Well, here's a quick question I've got then. With basically what you're saying, what we need there, yeah? It also, money comes into it as well. We all know we're the 7th richest club in the world, all this, but we all know we just don't spend it where it matters. Now, we could probably get 4 players there, I reckon, that would help our 11. And I reckon we'd get that for about At a random guess, 100 million for all four of them.
Who are they, Dan? Who are these for? Go on.
I would go for Eze, Toney,
Yeah.
Chiesa,
Yeah.
and then this is where I take a chance, a gamble. Depay, free. Because if you look at any of that front five we've got there, tell me one of them that could get into any of that top 4 team or even into West Ham's front three. Even Son would struggle these days. I don't even think Son would get in West Ham's front line up these days.
Son would.
Whoa there, buddy.
He'd struggle. He'd struggle.
Sonny would.
He'd struggle.
Behind. With what? Bet with what's his face? Kudos and Bowen.
Right, maybe Son's a bit harsh on it, but we all know he's on the way down.
To be fair, Dan,
he's on the way down.
I see where you're coming from, but you're judging it on Son, where he's had Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, Richard.
Yeah. No, I'll back off from that one. I'll back off from that one. Maybe that was a bit too deep.
Yeah, Jared Bowen, Alvarez, not Alvarez. What's the other guy's name? Kudos, and Antonio as his main front three. You're probably looking at it slightly different, where Son would probably actually be more. He wouldn't do as much running and whatnot. So,
basically, then I'll back off on that one. My bad,
Son. But I can see where you're coming.
Apart from that, we can't even get anyone into West Ham's team, basically, and Sonny's slowly on the way down.
Yeah.
I would go with the three I've said: Eze, Toney, proven Premiership; Fedro Chiesa, proven international. He's always succeeded when he played, and I'll take that chance with Depay personally. For a free.
Yeah. I just say on the Son point. I mean, what I would say with Dan there when he makes the point about Son, I think we do need to be looking for Son's next successor. Yeah, I think that's how that we should be already planning ahead if we are not already doing so. I would hope they are, because I think, look, in terms of Son, I think he would still walk into West Ham's front three. I think he would. Maybe comments might disagree. But I think how much longer? I don't know. But I think again with Sonny, he's still got to have a couple of seasons in the tank. The problem is, I think it's the players around him that are key. You know, again, he had Kane alongside him, of course, and that partnership they had. We haven't really seen that. I mean, again, it sounds crazy saying this. I know, again, you shouldn't look at too many conspiracy theories on X, but there was that video of every time Sonny would score, he looked to celebrate a player that would lift him up, and no one was lifting him up, which sounds a crazy thing to say. But he just hasn't got that relationship that he had, that telephonic relationship that he had with Kane, the way he did obviously have. I mean, he had it with Maddison in a small part of the season, but I think the reality is that forward line for me doesn't scream to you fear, does it? You know, it doesn't. You don't look at that and you fear playing Spurs. You don't. And I think the key is that's why I look at that front three, and it does need, in my opinion, serious upgrading to go into the start of the season. That's why, again, when people say, you know, we may only sign one, people are saying, well, hold on. Like Dan said, we are the 7th richest club in the world. What's our intent for next season? The manager has come out and told us he wants to challenge for a league. With no disrespect, if you looked at that front line and said, this is a manager that's come out and said, you know, he wants to challenge for the league, that wouldn't, would it? We've got to be honest about that. So the reality is that, you know, again, we look at the fact, you know, Son would 100% get in many, I would think, top teams in the Premier League when it comes to their forward line. But Spurs, in my opinion, still need to significantly upgrade on that. I will just say on Brennan Johnson, that young player, I think second season will be better. Is Johnson the finished article? In my opinion, he's not. I don't think he is the finished product yet. I don't think with Johnson he was expected to play anywhere near the amount of games he did come in for last season. I think he was meant to be blended in the side. And because of the injuries that we had, unfortunately, it meant that it was false momentum. He played more than what he needed to. But at the same time, I don't think there's any genuine Spurs fan out there that feels that one forward will be enough for us to seriously look to be changing as a club in terms of our objectives for next season. We need to have, at least in my opinion, 2 forwards that come in, address the number 6 role that we've discussed already on this show. And, you know, even defensively, the crazy thing, I think a lot of people actually quite like our defence. You know, if you said to anyone, would you want to change Porro, Mickey van der Ven, Romero, and you look obviously around the left-back situation, what we've got there now, I don't think many would want to change that. But the concerning thing is, as Dad stands at the start of the show, we conceded 61 goals last season. You know, so that's an area that you've got to be concerned about. And Vicario, for as great as he was, and Dan said at the start of the show, you know, teams did expose that weakness there. So has he worked on that during the summer? You know, again, he's been away at the Euros. He's got to show, I think, more bite in terms of, and like his namesake Venom, when it comes to that second season. But I think I need to see a lot more in terms of the next season from a lot of players, and also in addition, as we've said, not to sound like a broken record, that 3 to 4 players that do take this team to the next level to give me the confidence that we are going to look to improve. Because I think at the moment, not being negative, just being real, we're either going to stay as we are, we're going to go backwards, aren't we, with the current squad we've got? And that's despite signing Bergvall and Gray, that are great prospects for the future, but 2 players aren't going to take you from being fit to winning the title. That's just the reality.
You did mention Jonathan David. I thought was a perfect segue to kind of look into him a little bit further. And this is a striker show, so this is what we do on Spurs Kings TV, man. We look at players, man. We've got Jonathan David here. He's 24 years of age, so he's kind of young, born in the year 2000. That's mad to me. Remember the CDs? Everyone said the internet was going to crash and the players were going to fall out of the sky. Anyway, I digress. He's 1.8, so he's quite a tall fella, centre forward. As I said before, Canadian international, plays at Lille and has played in the centre forward position, second striker. That's what I've seen him a lot of. An attacking midfielder. He's played in those 3 positions for Lille and for club and country. Yeah, his contract runs out in 2025. Shock. We're in 2024. No hints there. But citizenship of Canada and America. So lucratively, if you look at it, it is a big market over there in America. Just saying. He plays in the 4-2-3-1. I don't know if his stream's running on time, just saying, but 4-2-3-1, and he plays the lone striker there this season. There's his heat map. Heat map shows he's not just in the box, he's out the box as well. He plays quite centrally, if you can see the red marks. So he's evolved in a lot of the build-up play. Here you can see the green bars, what he's really good at. And so we can see his non-penalty goals are in an 83 percentile, which is quite good. So it says the percentiles there, 83 you can see there and 83 there. Total shots is 51 percentile. So I would like my striker to probably take more shots in total. I probably want that in the green a bit more. Non-penalty goals and assisted goals as well, 78 percentile, so good. Pass completion, really good for a striker. So he's good passer of the ball, and progressive passes, meaning he's making good passes in the final third, really good as well. And carries is noticeable. Where he struggles, I don't know if you guys can see this, is successful take-ons. He's not a good dribbler by the looks of it in terms of beating his man or 1v1s. He's not like, elite in that sense. Touches in the penalty area, it's a bit low as well. So these are areas he could probably work on, or that's something we want to see a bit more. And if you're going to be a striker, you want someone to be in the box a lot. Progressive passes received. This is a bar I always look at. Progressive passes received means it's got a good first touch and he's in the area receiving those balls under pressure. Pause. Tackles, 70% tackles, so he's pressing as well. Interceptions, he presses quite a bit. But, so does Richarlison, so does Son. They press quite well as well. So that bodes well with our system. Cool. I've compared some of his stats compared to some of the players we're looking at. Dan mentioned Toney. We have been looking at Jimenez. Hapenda is a player we've been linked with. Gyokeres is the hot cake at the moment. Richarlison's there at the bottom, even though he hasn't been available for quite a bit of time. But you can see he's got 23 goal involvements there for all my stat merchants that want to know. If you look at his XG, expected goals, again, almost double what Richarlison is, just below Ivan Toney, but he's got some work to do to keep up with the. Well, actually, it's not too far off compared to like Jimenez and Gyokeres, 17.55 compared to 22.8 at the top right there. Shots per 90. Shots per 90, he needs to take a lot more shots, in my opinion. He's at the bottom of the list of all the strikers that we're looking at. Jimenez is at the top, Apenda's there. But again, you're looking at different leagues, but it is what it is. If they're not shooting, you're not going to score. So you need to shoot to get those scores. And in terms of shots accuracy, shooting accuracy, shots on target per 90, again, something he's not super clinical in that sense. We've got a Pender there. He looks like a gunman by the looks of it, 1.97. Jimenez not too far off him, and then Gyokeres as well there as well. So yeah, just food for thought, guys, for the strikers that we are looking at in the area. But here is his striker He gets the ball, good first touch, finishes it off, good finish, good reactions as well. First to the actual moment, to the scene. Takes good composure there in front of goal, puts in the net, holds off the defender, good feet here, puts the defender on his bum, puts the keeper on the bum, puts away. Laces finish there, near post. It's the corner there. That's what I like from my strikers. Near post finish, coming on the outside, and then putting it through the goalkeeper's legs with the next touch and finish. Again, inside in the penalty spot, using his instep, using the side foot, finishing it, nicking the ball for player there to finish off. In between the sticks, that's what I call in between the sticks, finishing there. Just working on an instinct there, just getting the goal. Again, on the end of things, you see that on that Ange ball a lot. Throwing the ball in there and getting into the mixer, he's there. And again, link up play there with another striker. Good finish there, chipping the keeper in the right place, in the right time, getting on the end of things. So there's no wonder that he scored so many goals in his career. He's more or less in that kind of area where you expected your striker to be, scoring goals from those type of positions as well. Finishing wise, again, using the instep, the side foot, using placement as well to finish, to find the corners. And again, a good lace finish there, half volley, header there as well, decent header to get on the end of things. Little 1-2-1-2 and puts it back in. I really like that goal. There he is with a striker linking up. There he is getting on the end of things, running in behind, taking that first time finish. Here he is doing a little link up play, little 1-2, and then his next touch is a finish. I'm looking at some of these goals and I'm like, this is what I wanted to see from Richarlison last season. Do you know what I mean? And so there's no wonder we've been monitoring this player for the last 2 to 3 seasons. Here, we're going to look at his passing again. Passing, expected assists, 2.3. Thought would have been a little bit higher compared to these other strikers because he does play as an attacking midfield or a second striker at times. And the shot creation actions per 90, slightly better than, much better than Richarlison and better than Toney. Not far behind Jimenez and Openda, but way behind Victor Gyokeres right there in creating goals for other people. Completed passes is really high. So that's one thing I noticed about his game. He is a good passer of the ball, whether it be short or medium. He's good at the build up. Here's some of his assists, taking on the player, and he's finding a through ball. Here's a nice little runs onto something and then lays it off for one of his teammates, one of the attacking mids. There he is for the striker, supporting there. Getting on the other things, causing nuisance, using his pace just to cut the ball across and then get that assist there. Here he is, again, firing the ball into the net. Little layoff for a player. Nice little strike there for that teammate. In possession, I looked at his dribbling again. So successful dribbles. Again, 38% successful take on, 15 actual successful take-ons, and then 39 I'm seeing attempts. So he doesn't attempt a hell of a lot of dribbles. And I'm comparing it to Toney because we don't really look at Toney in terms of him taking his man on. That's not really Toney's game. So I'm just seeing that. I'm thinking, okay, cool. That's not a part of his game. But progressive carries, slightly better. That's where you see him run with the ball a lot more. He uses a bit more of his pace, travels a lot well with the ball. And then receiving the ball, again, as I said before, he's not shabby. He's got a good, decent touch on him. That's what helps him with his link-up play and bring other players into the team. But here's his possession again. Again, carrying the ball into space, taking the ball up the field, running down the channels. There he does actually take his man on, take him to his byline. Good, lost a little sharp turn. So he's got some ability in terms of dribbling. It's just that he doesn't attempt it a lot. And when he does attempt it a lot, he's not super successful at doing those dribbles. But there you can see him demonstrating his pace, down the channels, looking after the ball there, being careful with it. Good little drag back there and then a half turn, little back heel flick there as well, a little bit of skill set, going around his man and then laying off, keeping hold of the ball in a dangerous area, just keeping the ball ticking over with his teammates, just adding a little bit, something a bit different. And this is something we could possibly add if Richarlison was to go, or even if Richarlison was to stay, just to add some competition. And the club didn't want to spend too much money on the forward line and wanted to spend it maybe on the wings or on a different position. David at 25 million, I can see why some fans would look at this player and think, yeah, this could be an upgrade on Richarlison. But yeah, as you can see here, like him shielding the ball, protecting the ball, dribbling, linking up well, finding other teammates in the midfield in those pockets. Again, link up play. It's not bad. It's not bad if you look at the rules. But it's just my concern was originally when I did see him, I watched him over a 90-minute game in Copa America and at the World Cup. And when I watched him live, he kind of went missing. And then also what concerned me was his strength on the ball. So those were the two things I thought, because I know he's not a target man like a Toney. Like your Toney's like a hit man, a target man. He's not really that target man, but he does drop into the midfield. Like when we saw Son, certain times he would try to drop into the midfield, but then he wasn't strong enough, would lose the ball. I think with Jonathan David, he might be a little bit better in those areas because he has played in attacking midfield and he has played as a second striker for a lot of his career as well, as being a lone number 9. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Dan? I'll start with you. Would you take him at 25 million as a snippet and then maybe spend money elsewhere on, like, you know, our wingers or even a 6 that we might need? Where do you sit on this?
It's better than what we got. Simple as that. So if we go and get him, I'll be happy with that. Personally, not my first choice. My first choice would be Ivan Toney for a reason. I think he suits Ange's system better and the way the other teams play against Tottenham. We all know that Tottenham love to get the ball forward with Ange's system of so-called attacking football, possession football, and then we just play tip-tap up front for 5 minutes until someone gets the ball off of us, or we get it in the box and it's so boxed up in the box that the striker we have there at the moment can't do anything. Like Son most of the time, when it comes to being compact in the box, he gets sandwiched. It's just not his style. I think Toney, you've got more of a complete player there, more of an all-round player. Call him a bit of a poor man's Harry Kane, except he can run and he's got a bit more muscle on him. I think Toney would be more adapted to the style of we would play, where it gets so boxed up in the box, where other teams just sit back with 10 players there. I think Toney would be significantly better for that position. But with what you've showed there as well with David, he's definitely got it. He's definitely got it where he's got the pace. He can have a shot outside the box. You could either probably swap him about on the left with Son and play about with him. But I think if you want someone there as your set striker, I think the most complete man we can go for is Toney, for the sheer fact of that he can play it one way, but he can also play it the other way. You can use him as the target man. You can use him with a bit of pace. You can use him as the man to sit in the middle, and he's actually got enough physicality to fight off a defender. Whereas Son will get knocked all over the place. Will this fella be able to do it with some of the defenders in the Premiership? Only time would tell. But if we went and got him for 25 mil, I wouldn't complain. But I'd still rather get Toney.
If I can jump on the back of what Dan just said there, if you don't mind, Ash, I think one of the comments that came into the show, I think was a really good point, is that a lot of the goals he scored was because he pressed defenders into making mistakes, which is really right up Ange's street, to be honest with you. If you look at the way Spurs scored a lot of their goals last season, it was by forcing the opposition into mistakes and deploying that real high press. And I think, that's something that Spurs are looking for in terms of a player coming in, that they're going to be asked to do that role and force opposition into mistakes. But I'll be honest, I do agree with Dan. I think, you're looking at someone that's going to come in and ultimately make the difference from day one. And despite having a fairly alarming end to the season in terms of his goals to games, I think it was only 4 in his last 17, Toney. I can't believe that if you put him into a better team with better players, that you aren't going to get a better output. And I think that's why many would like to see Toney come in, because as a player, when you look at his last 2-3 seasons, the guy has got a fairly decent games to goals ratio. The only thing again with Toney, I think what many are concerned about is whether there is almost an arrogance there or an attitude thing. But I think for me, the reality is that this summer, there's no one else that we see at the moment that are really coming calling for him. You never know if Chelsea might come with a late bid, but the reality is, I don't mean disrespectfully, maybe Spurs are the biggest club he can get right now. And, I think for me, the key thing I've always wanted is players that come to Spurs and don't see us as a stepping stone. But that's also our job to make them not see us as a stepping stone and prove to these players that they can achieve everything they want to at Tottenham. So I think I'm in the same mindset where I think Jonathan David looks fairly decent from the montage that's been put together there. A guy that likes to press the opposition, will score goals. With Toney, I think as Dan has said, you've got a player that he's Premier League proven, has done it in the biggest games against the biggest teams in the Premier League. But it's just about getting Toney back to that level of consistency, Can he do that? I think around better Premier League players, again, around players that can create more opportunities for him with Maddison there involved, you'd like to think he can do. But I think the key thing is Spurs need to add to that fairly fast so that player does get a fairly decent pre-season under Ange.
Marlon,
just a quick question on the back of that, because Ricky just said then about you kind of would hope that Toney would come into a better team and would score more goals. Do you think that was the same? But do you think we could end up doing the same mistake that we did with Richarlison on that sense? Because everyone did say at the time, and I'll be me included, going, if he was put in a better team, he would score more goals. And technically, he kind of has done last year. That was probably his best season. I think his second best season he's had in the Premier League with goals that he scored. But the way I don't know if it was Harry Kane in the previous season before that just caused him not to settle in. But we've all sat here and said, actually, we probably need someone better. Do you think Toney could be along them lines as well? Like, actually, he could go back to a better team? Or did we see enough of him in the summer at the Euros to go, actually, no, he would do better in a Spurs, in a better side?
I think that Toney would be the right man for the wrong and the right reasons as such. And I'm going to half contradict myself on why I think he's better than Richarlison for it.
Better you contradict yourself instead of us aren't telling you.
Yeah. Now, I think he's got a much better mentality for the job we need done than Richarlison. Richarlison mentally is weak. He's weaker. He's a lot weaker. Knock him off a few times and his confidence will come down, basically. Yeah. Toney, I think he's got the arrogance on him and the sort of screw you to everybody else of miss 4 open goals and then go score 4 open goals. Where Richarlison, he's got the more mentality, he misses 4 open goals and then he'll miss another 20 open goals. Maybe a bit of a big exaggeration, but either way. But then on the other side of it, Toney has sort of like got the wrong mentality we've been sort of looking at, because he's meant to not just have arrogance on him, but he's meant to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder and that as well. But I think maybe we need 1 or 2 more players like that at the club. We need 1 or 2 more players like a Romero, because we haven't got no leaders in that team whatsoever, bar Romero and possibly Vicario, because Sonny's no captain for me, never in a million years. Not for the pitch. Off the pitch, maybe. So it sort of contradicts what I'm saying he's got the right mentality, but it's also the wrong mentality. But again, I'd go for Toney, because I still think with him, you can give him 3 or 4 crap games, and he'll still come on with the attitude of, I can bang that in the net easy enough. Where someone like Richarlison, he'll just fall to pieces, as he does.
All right, wait, hear me out, guys. Sorry to cut you. Hear me out. Dilemma. Do you, because look, Toney played for Brentford. Their system was long ball into him. He holds it up and then plays in the wingers, whatever. In the box, you have to have decent wingers to cross the ball into him, or a decent place to cross the ball into him. Last season, we didn't really see Spurs cross any decent balls. We did like low balls into the box, firing it. So are we really playing to a Toney's strengths was what I was going to say. But my real concern is, do you splash on Toney? Because I reckon to get Toney, you have to spend minimum 50 to 60 million. You know what I'm saying? Or do you do the Levy way, which is spend 25 million on David, who's a lot young. I think he's like 4 years younger or 5 years younger than him, and then spend the money in other areas, as I said before, like your wingers. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So it's like, do you buy ready now, or do you buy someone that has been doing it 3-4 seasons, has the potential, but then also like you should spend money in other areas? But yeah,
I've just to add on to that question, basically, because from what the both of you guys are saying is that Toney will probably be the better one. Are you guys saying that actually we don't need someone who's a pace merchant up front? Because that's what Jonathan David looks like. We need someone who's going to be a bit more physically built, hold up the ball and cause all that. So is that the route that you both think that we should be going down on that, in that sense? Just on the back of Ash's question.
You know what, I mean, on Toney, that I've said, for me, I think the good thing is, and Dan brought it up, I think what he would do is he would hold players to account. I think we haven't got enough players in there, like we've discussed, with a level of experience where they are willing, you know, to really put the cat amongst the pigeons when things are going tough and not go hiding. And again, I do worry about the fact that, again, we're bringing in the likes of, and don't get me wrong, they're great prospects for the future, the likes of Graham Bergvall. We're bringing a lot of young players coming in. But I also do have that worry, as Dan said, that we are losing a lot of experience around the club. In a summer that Højbjerg is going to most likely go, maybe one of Bentancur or Basuma may be leaving the football club, Richarlison might be going. So when you look at then what you're left with in terms of an age profile, it's quite a young squad when you're looking to challenge for, again, domestic cups, Europa League, you want to go the distance in, you want to improve in the Premier League. I think the one thing with Toney is that he wants to come in and he wants to win. So I think, again, as long as, the key thing for me is, and I know, I'm sorry guys, it sounds like a cop-out answer, it's the man that, because I have to say this, I think it's the man that Ange Postecoglou wants. I mean, the problem is, as we've seen in previous seasons, that we've not always bought who the manager wants. They've been club starters, the likes of Jed Spence, the likes of Clement Longley. I think the key thing is that it's who the manager wants. And again, like, you know, we've had our discussions on here, and again, I'm last one on Spurs, and I know Dan said his piece on Werner before, but it's who the manager wants. Otherwise, you know, again, if it was our decision, we wouldn't be having Werner, would we, in terms of a fan base? I think the majority of us.
As a fan, though, Ricky, if you can blatantly see that, you know, the number 9 in Toney, and you believe that Tony's the right position. And
you got to sign him. You got to sign him. It's a non-debate. It's a non-debate. The money doesn't come into it. And that's the key. If you are focusing on winning and you want to win, the price tag should be absolutely irrelevant, and you go for Toney. It shouldn't even be a debate. You know, you shouldn't be taking the gamble on Jonathan David at 25 million if you know Toney can come in and do the job that you want him to do. It shouldn't even be a conversation. But it's whether Spurs will do that. And we've seen that in the past where, you know, with Spurs, that with certain players they targeted, they spent a long summer pursuing that player. Alain Moutinho, if you can remember that far back, of course, under Andre Villas-Boas, that we spent 6 months chasing the bloke. Only for then we got a statement on, I think, the day of the window closing to say we did our best, or to some degree we couldn't get it over the line, and we've been there with Paulo Dybala in the past. So I think the key thing for me is, guys, that I want to see players that come in who the manager wants and ultimately going to take Spurs forward. For me, I don't really care about the price tag. It's not my money. It shouldn't be a concern to us. We shouldn't be concerned about the money. We know the club are in a fairly astute position. Dan has said it. They're the 7th richest club in the world. They've got no issues around PSR, FFP. We shouldn't be sitting here concerning ourselves about spending 25 million on Jonathan David or spending an extra 25 million and going to get even to Ivan Toney if he's the right man. And that, again, comes down to the fact of what the Spurs want to be. Do they want to be a football club that ultimately wants to challenge and make statements, or are we just there to make up the numbers? And I think that is going to be very telling at the end of this window. We are going to get an indication of whether Spurs want to be a club that challenges or they want to make up the numbers.
I agree with what you've basically just said. I'm not going to sit here and be positive for the sake of being positive.
Why not?
I'm going to sit here and be realistic for the sake of being realistic. Again, I want to see actions. I want to see us go for players where we're the 7th richest club in the world and we've become this massive football club, which we know we haven't. We're a massive business that Levy keeps on preaching out. Then go and do your bloody job and go and buy some players and actually do it seriously. Stop beating about and everything. Go and do the job. Now, Toney, I don't even think it cost that much. Give it another week. I reckon we're getting for 40 million because he'll only have about 10 months left on his contract. And he's blatantly said he wants out. And we all know Brentford actually need money. They don't make money like Tottenham and the other clubs. So they're going to need as much money for him as they can. They're going to have to sell, basically, to get the money to survive. And we should be walking out here not even talking about this. If Spurs want him, they should just be walking out and saying, thank you, next. Yep. Same as with Eze. We should literally just be walking in there, slamming 60 million down and saying, right, we'll have him and we go for the next one. I'm not just going to be positive for the bloody fun of it. I want to see us do something that we should be doing. And that is things like that.
Actually, Dan, you brought up a very good point. And then actually, and this will just go and lead on to the next question. Actually, do you think Spurs are waiting for someone like Toney value to go down and make sure the weeks go on? Where, you know, at the moment, I think Ricky said at the moment, no one else seems to be in for him. So we're trying to negotiate with Brentford as much as possible, and not with Toney. I think. Do you think there's a case of Eze is we're going to pay the price, right? We're going to literally have to stump up that 50 or odd million straight away that Crystal Palace want to put on everybody else, and actually everyone else is now about the negotiating, and that's what's going on in the background, and that's probably part of the reason why we haven't really signed anybody. Do you think that's what's going on here? Spurs are not going in the case of actually wanting to go out and pay exactly what these clubs want at the moment.
Do you know what's mad? I think there's a bit of bad blood between us and Brentford. I'll be real.
Over the Raya deal.
Raya deal, one. And then the other thing is as well.
We tried to take Noosa off him, Ash, as well. We tried to take Noosa. We've just picked Archie Gray off him as well.
That's what I'm saying. So they might be a bastard. Like, we know how Levy moves. We know how Tottenham move. Like, we're gonna, you think you're gonna just run us down, we run us down. Watch. Like,
thing is, can't we just give him Reguilon back and just give him a bit of money? I mean, there's got to be something we could do there, the deal, right?
Well, we've pissed off too many people, man. Like, we're making it harder for ourselves. But
nobody wants to do work with Levy. It's blatantly been said everywhere that he is the worst. I mean, what was it? Fergie said, I never even want to see the man again, let alone do business with him, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe for Toney, we're looking at saving 5 million. But is it really worth it for 5 million? All right, 5 million, 20 of us sorts our lives out and our kids and grandchildren. But for them, that's tuppence money. They should be willing to say, do you know what? We'll pay the extra 5 million. Thank you. Where's the next player?
If you boys also remember with Pedro, and also just on that point, Dan, if you boys remember with Pedro Porro, we knew we were chasing him for the whole month of January, and we decided to sign him on the last final day of the window, I think, or in around that point, because we knew we may get a couple of million off. Which, to be fair, if we had Pedro Porro for the start of the month, we would have had a natural right back that would come in and actually fill a position where we were short at the time, and we needed actual defensive cover. But we decided to wait until we really blew that month in terms of a lot of results that we needed at the time, if you guys remember, where then top four was really difficult to get, just for the sake of getting Pedro Porro in later in the window to try and bring the price down, where ultimately the results suffered in that period where we could have brought him in earlier. I think that is the concern with Spurs. I mean, Ange has made it abundantly clear in his press conferences, up until this point, that he would like players in at the start of the window to be able to work with them through pre-season, to be able to get him up to skill in terms of the way he wants them to play. And I think, again, it is early January, but at the same time, we've got our first game tomorrow against Hearts. You would like your players as early as possible to be able to get them into the way Ange wants to play, because Spurs do play in a style that not everybody is accustomed to in the Premier League. It is a much gung-ho approach that, for many clubs, does take time to get used to as players. So I think, if we're going to really see Spurs make a statement, it needs to be in the next couple of weeks, because to start going into the first few games of the season and not have those players there is a real concern, I think, to try and get them up to speed. And you've seen that as well, because, Brennan Johnson, for example, Brennan Johnson didn't have a pre-season under Ange Postecoglou. And look how heavily criticised Brennan Johnson was last season, where, to be fair, in my opinion, I thought Brennan got better as the season went on. No, for me, he's nowhere near the finished product. No, he's not the absolute cast iron finished article at 50 million. But again, a player that you feel maybe with a second season under his belt, another pre-season under Ange, will hopefully get better and better. But we need more than that. We do need more than that as a club to really progress.
Sorry to cut you. The problem with a Brennan Johnson on the wing is he's so rapid, and Werner's so rapid. It's annoying because you want wingers that can take their man on. And I think that was the biggest frustration with Brennan Johnson after he was missing chances as well, which were on a plate. I can't remember what game it was off the top of my head, but like Werner, he did miss a sitter. And then in terms of supplying crosses at times, he was inconsistent on that right-hand side. Hence why people were like, he looked better when teams are tired. Then you bring a Brennan Johnson on. He's more effective. But I think with a lot of fans, we're like, in terms of quality and technicality, Brennan Johnson sometimes flatters to deceive because he's so quick. You're like, just run at the player. Why aren't you not doing that? Why aren't you not just using your pace, using your ability to go at some of these players? And so I think that's where the frustration lies at with Brennan Johnson. And also, he just seemed like he was a little bit, I don't know, not soft, but soft. Yeah.
I would say, Ash, just on Brennan Johnson, just again, in my opinion, and sorry to sound like a broken record on him, I don't think he would have started anywhere near the amount of games he started last season had everyone been fit and we didn't have that situation happen after Chelsea. I think he was brought in as a player to blend in. I know it sounds crazy, you're going to blend in a £50 million signing. I know it sounds mental saying that, but I don't think it was ever going to be a case where they brought Brennan Johnson in with the feeling that he was going to start the amount of games that he did. And look, again, I understand the jury being out on the player because I think, again, we seem to have a situation at Spurs that the wingers we buy seem to really lack what we need is a decisive decision-making matter in the final third. That, again, we've had that situation around Werner, we've had that situation around Johnson as well. And that's why, again, I think that brings so much more emphasis on bringing in a centre forward that can finish and not be in a situation like a Richarlison where they may score one every 3 chances. You want a striker that's going to come in and take a 1 in 2. Who I think in Toney can do that. I think Toney is that kind of striker that does that. Jonathan David, as we've discussed, is more a risk of 25 million because, again, You've got that adaptation to the Premier League. There's no guarantee he'll hit it running quickly. Whereas, as we've discussed with Toney, better players around him, knowing the Premier League, you feel he'll hit the ground running. I can't see why Spurs can't get that deal done early. You might argue it might bring the price down by 5-10 million. By bringing that price down by 5-10 million, that might cost us 3, 6, 9 points at the start of the season. We can't afford to be 9 points off the start of the season. So I think it needs to be a case where we go in these next couple of weeks then before the start of the season and get the prominent players done so they're working with Ange before the start of the season.
Just on the striker situation, like with Brendan Johnson, I think where the fans went a bit more harder on him is because, and it's not fair to him because he didn't ask the price tag. He was 50 mil, right? And then the season before that, Richarlison, 60 mil. And that's like 110 mil, almost like wasted. And so you kind of want your players to hit the ground running. So I think that's why there's so much pressure on the young lad. But I'm looking at players like that are going to cost quite a bit. We have been linked to this player, but so have a lot of teams. And I don't really consider this player a front runner, but he is a striker. So I'm just going to talk about him real quick and then we'll move on. But his name goes by the name of Victor Gyokeres, and his transfer market says he's 65 million. I reckon he's around 80. You know, Sporting Lisbon, they don't mess about. But yeah, if it is 65 million, again, that's something we could afford. He did play at the Championship in previous seasons, so he was at Swansea, Brighton, Coventry, and then obviously he went on loan to Brighton again and went to Coventry, and then ended up at Sporting Lisbon in the end. And I think that the last two stints in those two seasons is where he performed the most and got the most goals and assists. Real quickly, 6'1.5", so he's a tall striker. Last season, he got 29 goals, 10 assists. In Europa League, got 5 goals and 2 assists as well. So that shows that he can score in Europe as well. And we are entering the Europa League as well. He plays in a 3-4-3, slightly different system, but he is a lone striker in that system. And there is his heat map. So yes, he's in the box, but also if you could see down the flanks, he's quite heavily in the flanks and in the build-up as well. Green bars is pretty much everything apart from progressive passes, tackles, interceptions of blocks. That's where it kind of settles down. But apart from that, he's pretty much in the green for everything. Goals and assists, as I said before, 29 goals and 10 assists. So he's at the top, more than Jimenez, Toney, Isaac. And this is Toney in his good season, by the way. I'm not doing Toney last season. Again, shots on targets per 90 there in the 90s. Second to Jimenez. And here he is quickly on the half turn, quickly getting out of his feet, changing his feet, hitting the corners, top corner, going in the outside, coming inside, and then hitting that ball in the near post, sorting his feet out really quickly, going inside, turning in and out, gets onto the stronger foot, right foot, which he is. There on his weaker fit finish, inside step finish on the volley, inside that box, and his ability to beat the man inside the box, go around the keeper. I like that in a striker. He can literally be on the turn and finish, really instinctive there. And again, on the end of things, in between the sticks, able to finish that goal and put it into those corners. A bit like what Kane did. He used to find those corners all the time. But again, he's got a mixture of blends, just getting onto the end of things. And then here he is, pouncing on a mistake, hitting a volley. There he is, finishing top corner, getting on the end of things. First time finish. I really do like that one. Beating the keeper, finding the corners. And again, just getting on the end of things time and time again, hitting those near post, far post finishes, getting on the end of things right there again, near post finish first time, really like that. On the half volley, getting in between the sticks again. So that feature, he finishes that all the time. He's always arriving. So that shows his ability, his movement. And that's what we need for a striker, someone that's on the move. And there's a lot of times when like Werner did put a ball in, or Johnson put a ball in and no one's on the end of it. And so that's where I want a striker to be all the time. I want to see smart movement, clever movement, somewhere that can lose their marker and score goals. Here's his headers one. So I'm comparing it to Toney in his best season. Toney won 109, he won 62. But again, Toney attempted a lot more than him. So as a percentage, Victor Gyokeres actually headering is actually outdoing Toney as in terms of headers won. So he's good in the air, is basically what I'm saying. And here's some of his goals, again, inside the box, finishing from there, finishing for a little bit further out, getting on the end of things, and just using his head as a weapon. So again, he's not bad with his head. In possession, Successful take-ons, as I showed already. He's able to beat his man and try to fashion a chance out by himself, which I think is important because sometimes people rely too much on the service. I like my striker to do some of his work by himself. He doesn't need to let anyone hold his hand. And I'm comparing it to like an Isaac. Isaac's got a better percentage-wise in terms of successful take-ons. But again, he's like, in terms of percentage-wise, he's like second on the list. So he's quite good at taking his man on. Again, he attempts quite a lot in terms of take-ons and carries. He's number one, does more than Jonathan David. Progressive carries, he beats everyone by a country mile. So he's really good, really elite at ball carrying. Here he is taking it around the man, running through the center, being a problem, asking questions down the sides, getting into the channels, getting to that byline. So someone, again, you could use either wing because he's such a menace and it's got good close control, good ball speed as well with the ball, using the outside of his boot quite a lot of the time, using that first touch to beat a man, knowing where the space is, attacking that space, using his trickery to go left and right. First touch again, and he's on his bike, literally going left, looking right. And he's quite physical as well. He's not slight. He uses his body to get around his man. Something that you want to see from a Kulusevski if he's out wide. But this is what he's doing, protecting the ball, looking at, shielding it, going on the outside, very quick, going to the byline. And again, just causing himself nuisance, causing himself havoc, being a team player there. 3 or 4 players around him in that Portuguese league. I think that was, I can't remember the name of the team in red. But yeah, he's doing bits there. And sock creations per 90, you can see there he's top. And then also goal creations per 90, just second to Toney with the through balls. But yeah, in terms of like overall play, he's really up there. Key passes, you're looking at a top guy there. He's in the midfield and he's creative for his teammates. So again, here's his last bits. There's some assists, getting to the byline, cutting it back. Again, taking the man on, getting to the byline, cutting it back. So it's almost like a 2-in-1 play you've got there. Someone that can do the number 9 and also get down the sides and help the teammates and be quite fluid in that attacking position. There he is, putting on a plate for one of his teammates. But yeah, that was just a quick one on Gyokeres, another top player. But again, I said I don't think we would get him, but it's a player I would like.
So
honest. So basically, Ash saying to us, this is what you could have had.
Yeah. So I'm gonna look because I know Ricky got to go soon, but I'm gonna ask you all a question, and I want the chat to get involved in this question as well, right? And then I'll leave Ash to answer it last, right? So of all the strikers we have been linked with so far, right? You've had the list, you know who we've been linked with. Who would be your ideal top 3 that you'd go, I want that one first. If I can't get that one, I want this one second, and I want this one third as a last resort, right? And realistically, they'd have to want to come to Spurs, right? So just in perspective, I'm taking Isak out of it. You can't pick Isak, right? Because he's not going to want to come to Spurs. He wants the Champions League team. So I'm more thinking if you were right now with Ange, you were saying, look, this is who we can get, and this is the order I'd put it in. This is the guy that's going to fit your system. I'll start with you, Dan, and then I'll go to Ricky, and I'll go to Ash.
I mean, strikers are few and far between at the moment, aren't they? That's half the problem with it. You go back 10 years, there was plenty of strikers, but lack of defenders. Now there's plenty of defenders. It's a tricky one. There isn't much option out there. For me, my first choice is still Toney. Yep. I like the way he plays. I like the way he's also got Premiership experience, and I like the mentality he's got on the pitch. That player you just showed there looks the business, but I've never seen him play, so I can't really vouch on him. But that Davids looks good as well. I mean, another one who I wouldn't have said no at looking at, but he's meant to have a bit on his back, is that Goodmanson from Genoa. I think get him playing in a slightly better team as well, you'll see a lot more out of him. But again, that one's a gamble from another country and that. So yeah, for me, it'd have to go Toney, the one you just showed, and then David.
Ricky?
Yeah, I mean, you guys might think it's a bit more left field. One that I've liked for a while that I don't think Spurs are going to act any interest on is Santiago Jimenez. I just like the look of him as a player, his build. I think the only thing I would say on him is that he only got 3 or 4 goals more than Troy Parrott, which sounds mental because they're in the same league. And we've just gone and sold Troy Parrott to Adrian Alkmaar. So I don't want to bring the mood down, but Jimenez is a man that I've liked for a while just watching him. So I think in terms of the kind of order that I'd rate them, I think for me I'd go Jimenez, Toney, and then finally Jonathan David. I think that would be my order of ranking. But look, I'll be honest with you, if the window shut tomorrow and we ended up with Toney as opposed to Jimenez, I certainly wouldn't be against that because I think Dan's put all the reasons out there why Toney would be the right signing for Spurs. He's Premier League proven. He wouldn't need much adaptation time, be around better players that would ultimately hopefully suit our system. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think as many suggest in the comments, we need more than just one forward if Spurs are going to really genuinely progress. So it's mad that we've got to have a conversation about Spurs only signing one forward if that's the conversation because we need much more than that.
Ash?
I'm the last one to go, right?
Yeah.
In terms of like suitability, I think Gyokeres for me, he just suits it. He just suits the system down to a T. But I'm with Dan. I'm not gonna lie, with Dan. I think Toney transforms the way we play. Honestly, I honestly do. I think Toney's that guy. I mean, in terms of mentality, I think he made a brilliant point in terms like experience, someone that wants to win, that wants to take the club to the next level. That's the reason why he came out and said what he was saying and trying to approach the clubs he was trying to approach because he believes in himself and we need players like that. I remember him at Newcastle. I remember him at lower league level as well. And he was similar. His hold-up play, he knows when to arrive in the box. And even when he was playing for England, like the headering, like his aerial ability, crazy. I think that's something like that could be a different weapon. Set pieces that we're trying to defend as well. I think he could help with that. So I would say Toney, but Gyokeres, I think, fits the system down to a T. And I did mention his heading ability as well. Just needs to attempt more. But I think Gyokeres is not too far. But those are the two standout guys. And then I wouldn't be mad at David, but I just think physicality I've got question marks on, and that's it.
Interesting. Very interesting.
What about you?
I'm still on Vlahovic from Juventus. I think he would be ideal in this system. I've said it from I know he's had not the greatest time at Juventus, but I still think in an Ange system he would work. I don't know why I think that, but I've gone with that. Toney is probably my second choice, and my third choice. I'm after that. I'm kind of going. I'm probably on the Jimenez train right now as well, from what people are saying. I know a lot of people are saying he's going to be a lot like Vincent Janssen and things like that. But again, and he's not. And even for Mexico, he's a bit in and out with that as well. So he's probably my third. But I like Openda as well. I really do like him.
Yeah, he's a good player. Good player.
Massive player.
It's just whether, for me, like I said, whether he would want to come to Spurs is another question. And that's the only thing. So I would love him, but it's me, for that one, I think you probably want to progress his future. And
money talks, man. Money talks.
No, money talks, but Spurs, but they're Spurs,
and Spurs don't put it for the wages. That's why we'd never get Vlahovic. Never get Vlahovic. It's his wages.
I know we're going to end the show. That's the only point we're making. We've got the peas, like, spend the money. I don't get it. Like, just...
I just tell on the wages, boys. I mean, they're spending upwards of 200k on Werner, so that should never be a conversation. We haven't got the wages for a player.
Exactly.
I mean, if they're willing to spend that on Werner, then we should have no issue about any player we're signing this summer. If that's what the basis it is going to be about wages, because we're handing Werner 200k plus to be a squad option. That's all I can only think it is. Because if I allow my mind to think Werner's a starter, don't get me into what I do believe will happen this season.
It's true. We should. But do we is a different story. And I just don't think we'd play Vlahovic's wages along with the signing on fee for him.
Yeah.
Very, very.
But as all I want Spurs to do is prove me wrong. They haven't yet. And I just want to prove me wrong. I want people to sit here and tell me, well, you should have been positive because we've done this, this and this.
Yeah.
Give me something to be positive about.
No. And that's the thing. Like anytime anyone does YouTube things like this, the feeling we're getting, and is we're getting from the club, and people right now are probably going, but the season hasn't even started yet. The transfer window ain't ended, but there's like so many years building up of where we've seen this before. So you can understand where some people are coming from. Some people have gone early, some people haven't. But you know, we are where we are. But before we go, before we go, I just want to quickly read. Thank you to our super chats as well that we've had tonight. We've got Football Heritage TV. We all know Sam the man. He's gone. Imagine having a manager saying he needs to replenish his forward line, and then his first signing is Werner. Now only space for one more Spursy. So typical Spurs. And then Phil P. You know, great. You know, always with the jokes, but a great friend of the show. He says, "Q, if Levy comes back from Turkey with a box of fresh air, what trim would suit him best?" Asking a friend. Woohoo! And it's good to leave on a positive note. Ricky, thank you so much for coming on Spurs Kings TV tonight.
No worries, boys. It's been a pleasure, like I say. No, pleasure, boys. Like I say, nice to be on here. Nice to meet Dan for the first time. And just keep doing your thing, lads. Keep doing your thing. It's been a pleasure.
You all know where to find Ricky. Everyone probably on here knows where he's at. So, last word on Spurs. You know, I'm not even going to promote the channel that much because everybody.
We'll have a meltdown after we lose the Hearts tomorrow. Can you imagine? Where's all these forwards?
Yeah.
That's truly when the drama does start. If we get beaten by Hearts with a.
I know it sounds mad, but sometimes I'm here for the carnage, you know. Sometimes
oh man.
We lose all our friendlies, but we'll have a great start to the season.
Listen, it'd be better than the one under Ramos. So I think we won like all the friendlies. If you remember, we won them all, and then we end up losing Harry after 7 games.
Boom! Literally.
That's it. Take the friendly, in the top corner against Roma in a 5-0 win. Look what happened that season.
If we knew we were going to make these transfers, at least 2 of them, you'd still be annoyed that it gets left till the end of the transfer window to do it, but you'd be like, all right, at least we bloody done it. It's just the fact is with Tottenham, you just don't know whether we're even going to do it or not. That is the problem. Again, it's all good being positive, like, the transfer window, but it's already been open for about 3-4 weeks now, hasn't it? 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So again, we've seen all this before, and we've seen where it goes.
Yeah. I will allow them the fortitude that we have had just Euros and a Copa America, but I am on the same mindset as Dan that if we don't see anything in this next fortnight, I will be concerned because the players need to be there for pre-season. Otherwise, it's really hard to get an adaptation period under Ange for the second season. And again, just no respect to him, he needs a good start as well. I mean, you've got to be able to say that. As much as we need the players in, Ange needs a good start as well next season. You know, again, we can't get away from the fact we lost 5 out of the first 7. So lost 5 out of the last 7 towards the end. So he needs a good start. We need a good start in terms of, again, squad-wise going into the summer. Let's hope it all comes together.
Well, just to add on to that, piggyback onto that, he said he wants signings in quick.
Early.
What he said. So it's either they're not backing him or he's just a waffle maker. It's one of the two. You can't, you know what I'm trying to say? You both can't be right. So I'm hoping.
He hasn't been spurred for too long. That's the only thing. He
Give me my pills from now, Marlon. I need my copium pills from now. I need them early. I need my pills.
All I'm going to say, and this is where I do agree with Ricky, like the next fortnight, the Euros and Copa America might have been on, but the clubs and the agents have not been on holiday. So all of that stuff, all you're literally doing up until this point is that you're just booking the medical, right? So all of that should have been negotiated. And let's be honest, these agents would have been talking to all their things during the whole tournament, right?
They could do the medical where they were as well.
Yeah, they could have done the medical thing. But
even Ash and Marlon as well, boys. He even said, Ange, that the summer was planned out already. He told us that after the Newcastle friendly at the end of the season, that the summer was already planned out. I wonder if it is still planned out and it is going to plan.
Yeah, the fact that
this is where
a week after, or not even a week, a few days after the Netherlands have gone out, you're kind of going, if Man United are trying to act like a big club again, it's where are Spurs in all this? But maybe we got to pick up the scraps after all the big clubs have been. Maybe that's what they're looking at. Who knows?
And then the manager should never have said anything about going for a title next season.
I think that's
to say that to a bunch of blood-hungry Spurs supporters like us lot has probably got to be the most stupid thing the man could have ever said.
Yeah,
he definitely shot himself in the foot a couple of times for stuff he said.
A lot more, didn't
It'll probably help.
Dad, please let people know where they can find you.
You can always find me on Hotspur Hood, jumping around everybody else's channels like I do, being a pain. And yeah, when I start seeing some transfers and that, I will start doing more shows again. Who knows? That might take another 3 weeks.
But not positive.
Can I just say, I do want to be honest. If we're doing that on Eze and Neto just to see Dan's reaction, that would be brilliant.
I'll be over the moon, mate. I'll get a beer out. I'll get a couple of beers out.
Couple cans.
No, bottles, man. I don't drink cans.
You're a ball, man. I respect it still.
Oh, yeah, same as my mayonnaise. My mayonnaise has got to be out of glass jar, not plastic. Oh.
Sorry. I'm a ball man myself still, but yeah. All right, guys, man. As always,
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes. Tomorrow we're on like Donkey Kong. Please make sure you tune in. I don't know if you could share this message, because it's going to be a good show. And the more you like the algorithm, it does the things where we get seen a lot more. So we're just trying to grow here and
get great guests like Ricky and Dan back on, can't we?
I'm saying, bro, this is it. This is why we do what we do. We're just here. We're Spurs supporters, but we're trying to have fun as well, as much as we can. It's not easy, you know. These are hard times, but yeah, please do make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for our wonderful guests, and thanks, Marlon, for doing Black People Time, man. I rate it still.
Look, as
I'm joking.
you can see, I am not in my
DPT, bro.
Mate, I'm not in my normal place. I was coming
Every day. Sometimes
look, I'm up north. Blame trains, yeah? The English trains, right?
He's right.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. No, but big up yourself, Marlon, as well. Thanks for hosting up the show. But yeah, man. That's it, man. That's what I got to say, bro.
As always, as we always end the show, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.